Let's go to work, 'cause I'm tripping. Gotta work on myself, 'cause I'm falling apart. Please wake me up, 'cause I'm slipping. Can't fight this feeling off no more. But I'm not going to give up and fall. Rise above it all. Meet all my challenges and search for my strength. I defeat them all. I'm never ever gonna hide no more. I come to love myself again. Yeah. For all the things I didn't know, the pain, the hurt, I let it go. Start to believe in myself, and life will be sweet again. So sweet again. Above it all, meet all my challenges and search for my strength. I defeat them all. I never ever gonna hide no more. I come to love myself again. For all the things I didn't know, the pain, the hurt, I let it go. Let it go. And I start to believe in myself, and life will be sweet again. Oh, na na, oh na 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 na. When all I see is darkness and gloom, yeah, I'll be running from my doom. Oh na 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 na. But now it's time to live my life, and now I know what I need to do. Oh na 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 na. When all I see is darkness and gloom, yeah, I'll be running from my doom. Oh na 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 na. But now it's time to live my life, and now I know what I need to do.
Good morning, you beautiful sailboats. Welcome to the reef. It's good to have you here. It's nice outside. I was almost outside. I would love to be outside. It's wet, rainy, and foggy, but it's nice. It's nice. But I put all this work into setting this up, and what are you going to do, right? But we will eventually have both stations tuned in and dialed in, and yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for being here. I missed Wednesday. I was working on a new intro for a show, which some of you might have seen just now, and yeah, I don't know if that's even going to survive. I'm not even sure how this works now with like what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say. But I'm glad to be here, and I'm good in the seat, knowing that that I have your witness here for a minute. Thank you for being here. Let's see if this works. Yes, it does. There's a lot of deja vu about to come into your ears. This deja vu is either going to be because you saw my Clowns of War episode last summer, where it actually wasn't called Clowns of War. I haven't had time to look it up. But the Clowns in Space. Yes, Clowns in Space. some of you, I want to pull that memory up and have it on the kettle, man. Let's put that stuff on the kettle, because this is a sort of a continuation of that theme, but with a little bit of a deeper look in what we're doing. So let's get it on. I'm just loving the love here in chat. Good to see you guys, and yeah. We'll get to that, because Wednesday was supposed to be an AMA, and I was just asleep. I was asleep because I was up all night working on. It's not just this intro. I've got a couple different intros, and yeah. So let's get cooking here. Let's get cooking here. Now, I want to start off with a little tour. Actually, I'm not ready for this. I'm going to start off with a little tour through two documentaries. One of them is the Ghost War documentary, which is put on by the Voice of America, which is funded in part by the government. This is a disclosure, ignorance disclosure. You'll find out what I mean by that. And the other is just a simple talk given by a man at the American military Jewish World War II veterans conference, where he was presenting all the really, really important things that the Jewish people did in World War II. And these two documentaries are not related, and I want you to watch them in reference to the idea of clowns. We're gonna be talking about some clowns today. We're gonna be explaining that, because some of you are ready to start to look at clowns and in a different way. And that's what this show's about. I'm not trying to sway you, but I want you to see the difference between shill and clown, and we are going to outline that today. So instead of me telling you what's about to happen, let's just make it happen, okay? So let's start with this guy. Let's just listen in here. I'm going to hit slideshow. No, wait, that's on the wrong screen. Look how smooth I am. I'm going to hit slideshow. And then, I'm going to go back to the beginning here, because okay, thank you. Hang on. Let me hit stop, because I hear it perfectly. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. Man, I really thought this shit worked. Yeah, there it is. His desktop audio turned down. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. I'm learning a new interface here. Thank you. Thanks for the notice on that. Appreciate it, guys. Let's just let's do that again, okay? I bet you that someone texted me there's no sound. Let me make sure. Yep, thanks, Nate. Sorry, guys. We're starting over right now.
Bundle of stuff, or compress before you open the bundle. Spread
that thing's in the way.
the nozzles around.
I swear it's gonna
There's
be
a little bundle of stuff, or compress before you open the bundle. Spread the nozzles around and inflated it.
The artillery piece was good, but that M4 tank, that was the beauty. That was a piece of work.
Like I tell my children, what's the biggest...
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just typing in the chat to ask if someone had sound, and it must have made this thing stop. Man, I need to get my shit together. All right, James, let's figure out what happened. So on Windows, if you hit spacebar, it seems to break out of something. And what I want to do is just play the freaking video. Oh, I'm so sorry.
There's a little bundle of stuff.
I'm under the impression you can hear sound now. And this is the third time, and I swear, Actually, I don't swear. I have no idea what's going to happen. Here we go. Here's the third time. You should hear sound now. I'm under the impression you can hear this.
It was a little bundle of stuff, all compressed before you opened the bundle, spread the nozzles around, and inflated it.
The artillery piece was good, but that M4 tank, that was the beauty. That was a piece of work.
Like I tell my children, was the biggest boombox you ever saw, but it played sounds of tanks and activity.
Rommel in Africa used plywood to make the stuff that we made inflatable. Ghost Army, President Roosevelt authorized it the week between Christmas and New Year's in 1943.
Inflatable tank?
Yeah.
Wherever they were stationed, the Ghost Army impersonated real units. They masqueraded as generals and set up phony command posts to deceive enemy spies.
We were turned loose in town. Go to the pub, order some omelets, and talk loose.
All right, so that's the first video. That was supposed to be over a long time ago, but it's okay. So you see that there's multiple units that are basically engaged in inflatable warfare. Okay, inflatable warfare. Let's watch one more. We're gonna be talking about this. I just need you to not think that this is like a rare situation. I'll play this one first.
What you're seeing here, pretty much everything in here except the buildings is a dummy. That's all deception stuff. That's all the visual piece of it. And this is a pretty important one because this is the setup for the crossing of the Rhine.
So that's the crossing of the Rhine? The crossing of the Rhine was actually facilitated or instigated, appeared to occur thanks to inflatables. I believe I've got one more here for you.
What you're seeing here, and he created the first anechoic chamber, which is now standard in broadcasting studios, but that was the first one, and it was done so that they could calibrate this stuff. So they could adjust the sound to the distances, the humidity, the type of terrain, so that somebody hearing it on the other side isn't hearing an obvious recording. What they're hearing, or they think they're hearing psychologically, is whatever you're broadcasting.
And
radio deception. If you're going to have somebody, they're going to be imitating two full divisions at a time as their maximum capability. That's over 30,000 soldiers with all their equipment. And they have big radio nets. They're blasting radio signals all over, trying to coordinate.
30,000 soldiers run by a platoon of 12, 16 people. 12 to 16 people have the equipment to mimic the sounds and the visuals of 30,000 soldiers. 30,000. This is very, very important as you start to do the math here, okay? Before we go on, I'm actually going to take you back. I want you to remember the stream where we talked about the Battle of the Kegs. And if you're not familiar with the Battle of the Kegs in the Revolutionary War, I think that can just probably just do it like this. And the Revolutionary War, gotta click on the right screen is all. Battle of the Kegs, there it is. Battle of the Kegs. Wikipedia, propaganda ballad written by Francis Hopkins describing an attempt attack upon the British fleet in the harbor. But when you actually look at the story itself, you find out that it was instigated by hundreds of barrels of gunpowder placed in the water and shot from rifles from the shore. And the entire battle was not a battle. The entire battle was a fireworks show on both sides, where each of them is spurring the other one on through explosions. So through inflatables in World War II, and explosions in the Revolutionary War. All right, the same thing happened in the Civil War. The same thing, that stories were broadcast, music was written, propaganda was published, pushing war, just as the Pied Piper does, just as we have an episode about that does, explaining to you that it's a calling of war. But historically, we are to picture that we all had a desire as a people for war. When most of the fighting, most of the deaths that occurred in the Civil War were not combat injuries. Most of the people that died in the Civil War died from exposure, starvation, or disease. Most of the rifles that were found in the Civil War were never fired on the battlefield. Never. Half of those rifles that they found were only loaded once. Only one time were those rifles loaded. There is a mudflood thought pattern which says that the Civil War never happened and that it was fabricated. And that line of thinking is accurate, because the amount of actual violence that occurred was nowhere near congruent to the amount of propaganda about violence that was spread. And a platoon of 19 men in World War II with inflatables can mimic a 30,000 person army. And if you believed that there was a 30,000 person army invading your shore, if you could hear the sounds of those tanks coming, if you could hear the explosions in the distance, you would enter into a technology of belief which would unfold, which would lead you to render a reality in which war was happening right now. And if you had a propensity for war, if you had a flavor for war, if you felt that this was something that you wanted to give more direct witness to, you would grab a gun and you would run towards the sound, and you would kill anyone that you saw along the way. And friendly fire is one of the most suppressed phenomenon in combat. That most of the people that die in a combat situation, I am actually speculating here because I don't have a statistic to give you. I simply understand psychology and human behavior. And I've seen how accidents happen when you're inside a bureaucracy of people following a procedure inside a uniform. You kill each other, and then you insist that it didn't happen. And that most of the situation, most of the wars that we've been in have been friendly fire that's been covered up. It's added to the trauma because you come home and you're said, thank you for your service. And you literally killed your brother. You literally killed your neighbor. But you're not going to be able to accept that. You're not going to be able to render that in your reality. You're simply going to say that was a bad guy. Everyone does this. It's a human condition. But the only way that we could ever paint it differently is to paint it with heroism. It's a kind of inflammation that we apply to it. The Battle of the Kegs was actually a song that was spurred on by a tune, and that tune, this is what I mean by deja vu, was Yankee Doodle Dandy. And I say that's deja vu because if you heard the stream about the frequency of war, you know that that tune was used by both sides, to start a war. That Yankee Doodle went to town was used by both Georges. United Kingdom, Britain, whatever you want to call it, and America both used the same song to have a war with each other. And both of them were fighting the tyrannical person named George. It was one of the most blatant forms of war eugenics you've ever seen.
Gallants attend and hear a friend trill forth harmonious ditty. Strange things I'll tell which late befell in Philadelphia city. 'Twas early day, as poets say, just as the sun was rising. A soldier stood on a log of wood. He saw a sight surprising.
Can you hear the sound underneath it? Right?
As in a maze he stood to gaze, the truth can't be denied, sir. He spied a score of kegs or more come floating on the tide, sir. A sailor too in jerkin blue, the strange appearance viewing, first damned his eyes with great surprise, then said, "There's trouble brewing."
See, he's talking about there's a bunch of kegs floating down the Potomac, right in between where two armies were brought together to camp with nothing more than the water to separate them. And by golly, this strange thing occurred. There's now 100 kegs full of gunpowder and fuses floating down the river. Wow, what would happen if someone was to take a rifle and shoot one of those? Why, that would be a giant bomb explosion. That would sound like a frequency of war is what that would sound like. That's what it would sound like. Because that's how it happens.
What you're seeing
right?
here, pretty much everything in here except the buildings is a dummy.
Those are inflatables. They made the tire tracks. These guys made the tire tracks. That first they made the inflatables, then they took pictures. They had their own army reconnaissance fly over. I'm just saving you time. Listen to the video. Both these video links are in the description. But both the reconnaissance would fly over, show them the photographs, and they go, "Hey, there's no tire tracks. Guys, we can do better. We can do better. We can put tire tracks here. That's all. We can put tire tracks. We can have the sound." Right, the sound instrumentation to it,
and he
the
created
sonic
the first
deception,
anechoic chamber, which is now standard in broadcasting studios. But that was the first one, and it was done so that they could calibrate this stuff.
Right.
So they could adjust the sound.
Let's see if we can get to the next one here.
The humidity.
So we covered that one.
They also would do things like feigning drunkenness. So a couple of guys would pretend to be drunk. They'd walk into a bar already half lit, and they'd say something they shouldn't. All practiced. They got approval to impersonate officers. And so they had captains, Captain Reb, for example, became a colonel.
Right? So they're going into here. We'll just let him say it.
Here's another aerial. You saw one earlier. Again, you've got your tracks, you've got your stuff lined up. That's all dummy equipment as part of the deception.
So they would send people into bars.
This is Irving.
Okay,
Meyer.
we're hang on, Irving. Slow your roll, Irving. We'll get to you, buddy. We'll get to you. Wait till you hear about Irving. They would send impersonating officers into local bars. And the purpose of them going to the bars was to leak information, to leak false information, right? And that's how they would insert 30,000 division on the shores of the Rhine by implanting it. And that's bad. Don't get me wrong, that's bad. Don't get me wrong. And when you first see the deception, you're going to be like, oh, that's evil. And it's still evil. I'm not even arguing that it's not. I'm not. We'll have to talk about evil again really soon. But what I want you to do is understand that you've also made an assumption. Just like you would make an assumption when you saw these kegs being exploded between two armies. You would have no choice but to think one of these armies is firing at us. You really have no choice. That when you're watching something like this happen, that you end up doing the same thing by assuming that everyone who's doing this is actually nefarious. That everyone who's doing this is doing this because they are bent on destruction. Sounds so weird. This is an advanced class in empathy today. It is. But it goes into the asking of the why. And so many of us get confused because if they're like, well, James, if you're asking why, that means you're consenting with someone, and that's not the case. I'm asking why because I want to understand. We want to understand why this is happening, why these things are occurring. Why would you stage a war? What would be the purpose of that? Economic gain, sure, but you already control the treasury. You already print the money. So could it be something beyond economics? Right? Well, human slavery, that's a definite possibility. In fact, that's been most popular. That's the first go-to excuse we all use. It's for human slavery. They're trying to enslave humans, so they lie to them. And that there's the assumption. And this is what makes this stream, this channel, an advanced class. Because the assumption is that because they want to enslave us, they lie to us. Why? Because someone who lies to you automatically wants to enslave you. That's a good, sound assumption, and you can build an entire world off that. You can create Zionism out of that. You could burn witches for it. You could hunt down the people that are lying to you, and you could put them on trial, and you could have a whole public trial. You could call it the Nuremberg trials. You could bring justice to those things, and then everything would be better. And then no one else would lie to you because the liars would see that you brought justice to Nuremberg, so no one else would try lying. and that's where we are. That's where we are. We decided to prosecute the liars, which brings us full circle back to why the fuck would they lie to us? Why would they do that? If you don't have the electricity for this discussion, I don't blame you. You can leave, right? I wish you could downvote it and I could see it. I apologize that you can't do that. I think it would make you feel better if you could. Because you could join the rest of the fearmongers and go, it's all, right? And just go. Like, feed on that. I get it. But what you're looking at is someone is hacking humanity. Someone is planting an incendiary device in front of humans, and their purpose, whatever their purpose is, doesn't even matter, because what I'm explaining is what's happening. That they're planting an incendiary device, and it's attracting a certain class of people to that sound. And the class of people that are attracted to that sound have something in common. One, they are easily fooled. Two, they are loyal to what their rational mind has assumed is happening. Three, they do not have an aversion to killing someone. And those are the three requirements of this Yankee Doodle Dandy song. Those are the three requirements of staging a war. This is going to hurt. But now we got to talk about Irving Meyer.
Engineers. This is Irving Meyer. Meyer was with the 406th Engineers, which are combat engineers. They were trained alongside the airborne, minus the parachute jumping. They were the toughest guys in the unit, and they provided security, and when they needed real combat troops for part of a deception or for security, they used the 406th Engineers. Normally you don't look for engineers, you look for infantry for that. These guys were very, very highly trained. Well, he went back to Pratt Institute, and where the other guys had studied art, he studied engineering. Irving Meyer is the father of that particular peculiar piece of hardware. Anybody know what that is? Davy Crockett. And why is that significant, sir? That is the first tactical nuclear round that the infantry had. Irving is one of the three guys who led the team that created the Davy Crockett. And he was awarded a special commendation presented to him by John Kennedy when Kennedy was president. It was not popular with the troops, but we deployed them into Germany, and you know, it was pretty serious. We can put those on a Jeep, we can run them out, and we can bombard you with tactical nuclear weapons.
That's right. There were 10,000 of these made. Not once were they ever fired. If you look at the front of this giant flying dildo, you've got this giant, huge head that's made to be seen. The person who made this, Irving Meyer, was an artist at Pratt University. He was an artist. He was a sculptural artist who they said designed the nuclear warhead on this Davy Crockett rocket. It had the name of Davy Crockett. Due to the bulb on the front, it was completely the opposite of being aerodynamic. Anytime it was attempted to be fired, most of the time it would hit their own troops. You can call this a folly of technology, or you can call this something that's working perfectly. Perfectly. The reason why he explains the troops were afraid of this thing is because it was designed so the troops would not want to fire it. It was designed to instill fear and to propagate the idea that there is something called a nuclear warhead. And that both sides were fighting not just for freedom, but for stopping the destruction of the entire world due to the compression of an atom. And that is some of the most salacious flamboyancy that you could take on the battlefield. And with one really stupid looking flying dildo rocket, you could mimic the presentation of 30,000 troops, right? The very power of that many troops could be mimicked by claiming to have this one weapon. You could tell that to your own division. Guys, we're getting a Davy Crockett. People are like, what's a Davy Crockett? Dude, it's a nuclear warhead. We're going to be carrying a nuclear warhead? Yeah. Dude, we're going to have to do an even better job. We're going to have to really, really, really focus. We can't mess this up, guys. We can't mess this up. And it heightens and it dilates everyone on the field. Both sides. Both sides. Both sides. And you really lost with, you don't know how many people actually showed up to fight. You really have no way of counting. That all of it's propaganda.
This is Irving Meyer. Meyer was...
Let's go to the next one here. The weapon's short range posed a real threat to its three-man crews. If the wind veered and they fought themselves downwind of the target area, they were at risk of receiving a lethal dose of radiation. Only one live Dave Crockett round was fired as part of the Little Feller nuclear tests in Nevada in July 1962, but data from test firing inert rounds was shocking and led to the weapon being condemned as too inaccurate to deliver even low-yield nuclear fires. Despite all these flaws, a total of 2,100 were produced. Despite all these flaws. Initially, the only effective counter to this threat was the equally overwhelming U.S. superiority in strategic atomic weapons, but their use would almost certainly have triggered a devastating nuclear exchange which soon became known as MAD, Mutually Assured Destruction. Irving Meyer graduated from Pratt University. His job was to create salacious, flamboyant, dilating art. Something that would elevate the soul. Something that would dilate the pupils. Then there's these guys.
These are some of the guys. There's Arthur Shilstone there on the left. Seymour next to him. All the way on the left is John Jarvie, who was a member of our board, who has since passed away. And Nick Leo on the far right. Nick isn't one of the Jewish soldiers, but he's interesting in that he went into Omaha Beach the night of D-Day And they were going to run a radio deception, and turned out that the 82nd Airborne lost a lot of its radio gear in the jump into Normandy. And so instead of being a deception, for about 2 weeks, they were the radio voice of the 82nd Airborne.
Tell me you heard that. I don't mean technically. I mean, like, tell me you just did the math on that. This guy just told you that Normandy, during the invasion of Normandy, the 82nd Airborne conveniently lost all of their radio equipment, and that they were forced to listen to 3.5 Jewish guys telling them about the battle that was happening, where the enemy was, and where they should go. Tell me that was an accident. You tell me that was an accident. You tell me that that was an accident like 9/11 when they said the reason why we couldn't track the planes, James, is because all these false targets were on the screen. James, there were thousands of false targets on the screen that morning. Well, why were there false targets on the screen? Well, because they were running a training exercise, James. Duh. So the very morning of the hijacking, the only hijacking of its kind, that same morning we were running a exercise where we were placing thousands of false targets on the air traffic control grid across the nation. Yes. Yes, that's what happened. And that's the story. Same story that Normandy was the worst battle in World War II. And you just found out there was actually no radio communication. None. Now, this is why we talk about aperture, because I'm not telling you that people who believe this story are necessarily weaker minded. These are very intelligent people. They buy this story because it's too uncomfortable to consider something else. And what I'm offering isn't even more uncomfortable, but it requires you having the stretching ability to step up to that level to say, wait a minute. Why does this keep happening? Why is it that every time America gets stronger with their weapons, every time we get more budget, literally every election, someone votes to invigorate the military. And why is it that every time we invigorate the military, really, really, really bad shit happens? For 6 decades now, America has its ass constantly kicked by Santas, box cutters, or a cosplay Viking in 2 neckbeards. Taliban was 1,000 people, 200 pickup trucks. Think about it. Yeah, I'm working on the show, guys. I know that was loud. Sorry, Nate. Appreciate Nate Cirque telling me that. Yeah, I agree. Lots to do here with all of my dials and stuff. But yeah. Now I really want you to look hard, though. Why? Why would a clown do this? Why? And stop saying because there's Luciferian child skull fucking secret cult. Stop. You haven't met one of those yet. None of us have captured one of those yet. Maybe it's another reason. Let's see what we got next here. Come on. See, these are inflatables. What does a clown do? When a clown comes to a birthday party, he brings balloons, right? He takes those balloons and he wraps them up and he spins them around and all that other stuff, right? He makes shapes out of them. Makes giraffes. And they're flamboyant, right? They're really loud, like that last bit. Rarely, if ever, has there been a group of such a few men which had so great of an influence on the outcome of a major military campaign. This is the 23rd Signal Company. Every one of these soldiers was responsible for creating a fake army. You can see the links in the description if you don't believe me. So what is a clown? What is it? A clown is flamboyant, right? Or as I sometimes would say, salacious. A clown is easy to follow. A clown holds your attention. A clown offers mass appeal. A clown can work solo or alone, right? You can pack a lot of clowns into a car. And more importantly, a clown uses props and inflatables. He uses inflatables to do all those things, right? To hold your attention, all those things. Now, here's the question. Is deception synonymous with evil? Is it? At first, your first inclination is, of course, yes. Yes, all deception is evil. Deception is evil, James. And then we start thinking about camouflage is evil. Queen Anne's lace that puts that piece of black, that little black dot right in the middle of her crown. That's deception. Chameleons are deceptive. Any kind of animal deer are deceptive. They're blending into the environment. They're pretending to be something else. And your first inclination is to say yes, because deception is evil, because the world is supposed to be honest, that we are all supposed to be honest with each other. And we are. I'm not telling you we shouldn't be, but I'm trying to tell you about what the natural world is, that nature itself doesn't see it that way, that nature considers deception important. Nature considers deception constructive, right? Isn't that weird? Nature considers deception constructive, helpful even. And when you look at someone who's hacking the system, someone who's deceiving the system, they are making the system better. And so you could argue that anyone that is deceiving is evil, but then that's going to make you think that anyone who's trying to constructively point out the flaws in something is bad. When actually, that's the person that's on your side the most. This is a low-key concept, isn't it? This is Loki, L-O-K-I, right? This is the hackability of Loki. Loki is a hacker. Loki hacks you, and you end up stronger because of Loki's attention. That Loki gave you that witness, and you either fell or you grew stronger. So, is Loki evil? Well, yes, James, of course he's evil. So, when you take your dog to the vet, are you evil because you told him you were going to the park? And if so, then why do you have a pet? Why? Why do you lie to your kids? I never lie to my kids. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You lie to your kids a lot. Sometimes you say, oh, that's interesting, and it's not interesting at all because you've heard it 17 times. Sometimes you tell your child, oh, well, we might do that later. And you have no intention of doing that later. None. Your intention towards the subject is positive, but you were using deception to bring about the positivity. You were Loki to your child. Do we owe a dog's rational mind an explanation? Do we owe a child an adult explanation for a resolution they simply can't hold? Right? I don't think you can choose not to lie to them across the board, B. I think that you can definitely raise your kids in a situation where I'm going to be honest with them at all times. I know that that's the case. But I don't think it's actually possible to raise the child in a healthy way. I don't think that it's possible to do that. I think it's a hypothetical. That's my argument. I'm not saying I'm right, but that's my argument. Lies are lies, James. No, that's actually not true, Unmaker. You're claiming that one word is the other, which is fine, but that doesn't actually say anything. You're trying to say, well, therefore it's a blanket statement because one word is spelled the same way as the same word. That's not an argument. That's a lie. You are using deception right now to prove that lies are lies, and that actually doesn't prove anything. It doesn't. That even telling your kids that there's a Santa Claus has a constructive nature to it. That when you tell your kids there's Santa Claus, you are lying to your kids, and you know that your kids are inevitably going to solve that mystery, which means your child is going to see you as no longer a pinnacle for all things true. And they learn that anyway. And that would be an important lesson. You would want your child to know, look, you cannot rely on me for everything. I'm going to be gone one day. And I might not even see everything. And so even as a parent, because you love your child, you end up lying to them because you know it's constructive. Deep down, you know it's constructive. But your rational mind cannot handle a world with that many lies, with that much deception. So it paints a world that doesn't exist. And the only way it could paint a world that doesn't exist on those lies is to have something called government that's good. And when government's good, they would go in, and sure, they might have to have a war because that's how it works, James, but they would never lie to us about that. And that belief is precisely what allows government to do what it does. The same way your child has the belief in you, which allows you to do what you're going to do. And you will tell yourself, well, I wasn't lying, and technically we could decide to get ice cream later, maybe. And that's you lying to yourself about that. And it's cute. It's not a flaw. It's cute, which is why this makes it an advanced class, because some of us are only able to operate from a very simple perspective where we have to say things dichotomously. Every lie is bad. Every form of deception is bad. But every form of honesty is not good. But you're making that assumption by trying to claim that all lies are bad. The FDA said we are not going to know what the long-term effects of this are for at least 55 years. The FDA said the only way to truly make everyone be vaccinated is to scare them. They said that. Most of the leading advocates for the CDC say the same thing. Most of the politicians every single politician that you, your parents, or anyone else has ever voted for has lied to receive that vote. Every single person that you consider a hero in your life, I'm talking on a mass cultural scale, has had to dope or lie or create propaganda to get there. It's true. Does that make it evil? If you want to say it does, I get you. That's a beautiful thought form to have. But you're not living in the world. You're living in a propaganda that was painted to you about what the world is like because we have something called truth and justice. And that those are comfort things that make you feel better. Those are horse blinders that you apply so you can understand. Why? Because a clown is folding balloons for you, and you've been giving them 45% of your life force. So of your parents, so of your grandparents. Now, we haven't even gotten to the good news yet, because I know there's resistance about how lies could ever be constructive. I know that that's still there. And the ones that can't make it on the ferry, I don't think you're going to enjoy the rest of this episode. I don't think you're going to enjoy the rest of my content. Because you're going to be so sold on the idea of placing that moral high ground, not on the truth, but on a hypothetical illusion that you've been told that America is good, that righteousness is always good. And righteousness would tell you what it's doing. Righteousness tells you, well, we're burning the witch because she's a demon. Jeez. Man, can't we just burn a witch around here? Jeez, what does a witch have to do to get burned around here? Because you're playing into that game of no. Deception versus non-deception. And that is the myth. That is the deception. That is the camouflage right there. That's the camouflage. You have to ask, what is the purpose of the deception? You do not have to ask what the purpose of the deception is so you can grant someone moral good. No. Even if you know the purpose of someone's deception, that does not make their act good. They lied to you. So on a resonance level, it still doesn't fit the bill of a perfectly righteous, wonderful thing. But you are not going to find anything in the world that does that. The only thing you're going to find in that is fantasy. And that fantasy is going to involve you having to create a killer. And that killer is chasing you with a knife, and you were just there in your low-cut jeans, and your breasts were heaving, and you were just innocently walking through the woods in a canoe. And then this guy came out of the canoe with a hockey mask and a knife and started chasing you. That's the only world that you will be able to see if you're under the impression that deception is bad and the lack of deception is good. Because some of the most horrendous things that have ever happened to you happened not in a field of deception, but just plain right out in the open. This insert is intentionally left blank. It's the feeling that you have that makes you want to think, oh, well, it's because everything was rushed, and sure, they had time to make a vaccine, but they didn't have time to type like the warnings. Gosh, man, James, you're really expecting a lot out of them. I mean, who's going to have time to type things like that and print them? Where are you going to hire like a graphic designer? Like, what is there, like a 24/7 copy place that has like a graphic designer for like $7 an hour? Right? You have to look harder now. And at no point do you have to consent to this. All you have to do is compassionate why it's happening. That's all. Why would someone continuously lie to you? And what would be another reason besides they're just evil? Why would you lie to your dog? You want your dog to be healthy. So how does that work? Well, let's find out. Let's find out how that works. Let's look at the difference between shill versus clown. A shill is paid, so is a clown. Both are using deception. One is being paid to be discreet. Let's say that's the shill. And the other is being paid to be obvious. That's the clown. Now, no matter how obvious the clown dresses, if the audience is not paying attention, the audience isn't going to even know it's a clown. You can come out with the most outlandish story in the world. You might want to hide one of your inflatables. You might have one of the largest inflatables ever, as big as a football field. And that something might happen to that inflatable where it might fall on a Nevada desert. And when it fell in that desert, you might want to hide that inflatable. And you might say that it wasn't an inflatable, it was a spacecraft from outer space. It was an alien life from outer space. And we're covering that up by telling you all it was actually an inflatable. And that is epic clown thought. That is some clever, clever magic. It's hiding behind the very thing that it's pretending to be seen. It's some of the most constructive, deceptive logic, and it goes all the way back to the War of the Kegs. It goes all the way back to World War II. Been doing this a while. It's always going to be flamboyant. right? And there's always going to be something else happening that you're never going to see because of how flamboyant it is. Every single piece of propaganda is going to have to look this way. All of it. All of it. Its job is to engage the community. How do you engage the community? The Hottentots are coming. The Hottentots are coming and they have nuclear weapons. Don't you hear the explosions? Can't you hear what's happening? So the show is always obvious. You'll always be able to see it. Trying to get to the good stuff here. Sorry, I wasn't sure which one I was going to show you this one here. Come on, man. Give me my mouse. Okay, so how in the world? I don't even need to show you this. I can. How in the world could this be constructive? And I want you to look at the New World Order. I want you to picture that you were smart enough and intelligent enough to be recruited by the CIA. And as soon as you entered in the CIA, you noticed right away how broken the military was. That as soon as you entered the CIA, you noticed right away, wow, these guys fall for powder kegs floating in the water, exploding. These guys fall for inflatable tanks. They will kill people at the sight of a balloon. I could show them a balloon and play some music and they will kill people. And you're the CIA and you're noticing that something's happening, that this corrosive man-bear pig system, which is thriving inside the military because that's where most of us are evacuated, is a threat to your nation. And as a threat to your nation, you want to fix that. And the only way you can fix that is to be as clowny as you can, to hack the system. And that your purpose in life becomes, I'm not dealing with irrational people. I'm dealing with people that think that deception is always bad and someone who's out front is always good. And that these same people have killed millions and millions of people, have burned millions of witches, not millions, but tens of thousands of witches, have fought crusades, have invaded foreign soil, all because of inflatable balloons that they believed in. And the CIA would then say, what are we going to do? We can't tell the people the truth. It's not salacious enough. It's not flamboyant enough. And it hurts. We're going to tell everybody that 17 people planted the invasion at Normandy? Who's going to want to buy that? And the same amount of people will want to listen to streams like this. It's too painful. No one wants to hear that. So they don't. So what does the CIA do instead? They battle shill with clowns. They start to hack the system. And it's interesting that JFK was the same one that approved these Davy Crockett's, because he approved the Apollo landing too. And if you're a clown, you're going to use props that are inside the world that you're living in. You're going to find people that have the same concern as you do. That these people would hand over their own autonomy for environmentalism. That these people will feel that they're so disgustingly dirty that they would hand over their entire health to a World Health Organization. And that this is inevitable, and that we as the CIA, the only way we can stop that is to hack the media, hack the people, hack the system, and to show them the Waynell Sexton side of life, to show them the Epstein side of life, to show them the Building 7 side of life, to show them the flaws of following someone like Fauci. Now, this is not something that you are going to be able to absorb if you think that I'm implying or suggesting that the entire CIA thinks this way. Because that's what a simpleton does. A simpleton thinks that the CIA is one colossal philosophy that everyone agrees to. Just as the military is the same. And it doesn't work that way. It's much harder than that. That inside of the CIA, you're going to have factions that have been appointed by people that have been given budgets by people. Some of those budgets could be 20 years old. Some of those budgets could be 50 years old. Some of those CIA could have seen a long time ago during Kennedy. Holy shit, Man Bear Pig thinks we landed on the moon. We need to start shipping drugs so we can have our own budget. And that our department of CIA has its own budget. We are in inflatables. We are in the inflatables division. And it is our job to inform the people that the government would try and kill them. That's our job as CIA Unit Number 6. And that those people would feel good at night. They wouldn't go to bed at night going, ha, we enslaved 10 more people today and they shop at Walmart. We feel so powerful that we enslaved people that were already enslaved. That's one theory. Another theory is, oh my fucking God, look how patriotic I am because I'm showing people, I'm hacking the system, I'm serving the role as Loki. I'm wearing a mask and terrifying people so they will wake the fuck up. Now, which CIA identity would fit more? Which one? Because every division of the military, including the CIA, has infiltrated the media a long time ago. And just as that meme goes around where there's like 7 Spider-Men pointing at each other and 6 of them are FBI agents, the exact same thing is happening now. That it's friendly fire, that we have psyops on top of psyops, all within the same county, right? From look at all the towns, and look at the propensity for mass corruption, and just do me a favor, stop pretending that it's corruption. Stop, because if you start to look at it that another healthier way, if you start to look at it with scrutiny, you start to see, oh wait. Maybe having a poop map of San Francisco isn't like just a fault in everyone trying so hard. That maybe something more constructive is happening. That every single day we're seeing more truth, not less. Every single day it's getting easier to see this stuff, not more. And the entire time, the Man Bear Pig systems, such as YouTube even, such as Facebook, all of them, will constantly suppress things. Not because they're true, not because they're false, but because they hurt. They hurt. And that's what ends up calling itself righteous. That Facebook says, hey man, we're just out fact-checking. We're just fact-checking. And there's your righteousness. There's your group pretending to be honest. The people that are pretending to be honest are the ones that are censoring you. The people that are not pretending to be honest are the ones that are helping you. And that's it's a big lesson. When you look at the purpose of the crook and the flail, which I know we talked about a lot, if you look at a rodeo clown is flamboyant because he's there to distract the bull. He's in the game of crowd control through inflatables. Government uses inflatables because they're light, they're easy to transport, and it's easy to get around. This would be the only way you would want to run things like this. There's not really a better way. So, I'm not asking you to like the clowns, but I'm asking you to look at the deeper problem. The problem is not with people lying to us. The problem is with us trying to blame someone else for us believing what they were selling. And that's a sovereign way of looking at it. It stings more. And someone yelled at me in the comments the other day. It's like, why are you giving them a free pass for what they did to our children? And my response to him is, are you talking about the parents? And his answer is no. No, he's talking about the bad guys. It's like, so the parents are not bad guys. No, why not? Because they were deceived. So one who is deceived is good, and one who deceives is bad. And that's not true. Who consented? Who consented? Does the clown own consent over your child, or does the parent own consent? Which one helps us more? Which one's helping society more? A Facebook that's censoring anyone that's trying to say that something's bad? Or a gang of torchbearers that prosecute someone at Nuremberg to say, you guys did bad because you lied to us. And we were just innocent. We had our shit together, man. And no one in nature lies. There's no such thing as camouflage. None of that's true. So clearly this is a fault on your part. And because we're going to condemn you, now we're all back to normal now. We're all better. We're all safe. Why? Because now we have an even bigger government. We started the United Nations. And so the CIA is watching the United Nations form as a result of World War II. They're watching the entire thing happen. And maybe they want to hack it. Maybe they want to fix it. Maybe you start to look at which buildings. Hey, Frank, can we harness the power of the CIA to figure out if any buildings are scheduled for demolition in the next 6 years? I'm going to pretend like I'm typing because it might kill the stream. Yeah, there's 6. There's Oklahoma City, Denver, Des Moines. What, did you say Oklahoma City? Yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool. Can you print that? No, it's like you have to have like a printer driver, and I don't have it on this computer yet. The entire thing writes itself, and the CIA is constantly going to be looking for things that they can do that they can feel like are patriotic. Everyone wants to feel like they're doing their job. And everyone wants to feel like they're innocent. And everyone wants to feel like they're a victim while they're consenting, while they're doing it. And the only way that ever's going to help is when a clown runs through the hospital right before that special K injection. And he honks his horn and he runs through and the mother says, stop. Why does this feel like a clown show? And the doctor says, well, I don't know. I don't know, because this is all safe and effective. And the mother's like, this feels like a clown show. Now, the doctor was being completely honest with her. The clown was not. This is why you guys This is why there's a limitation to staying in that kiddie pool of morality, right? Where if the water's warm, that means it's good, when actually it's just urine. And when the water's cold, it's bad because it doesn't feel good. That's kiddie pool logic. That's objective reality. That's the idea that there is a morally superior way, and then there's everything else that's wrong. This show is going to have as many operatives as you can find motivations. Because just like nature, you're going to have a bunch of people competing for a scarce resource. There's a resource somewhere, and people are going to be competing for it. And deception is a vital part of nature. Deception is the most vital, healthy part of nature that could exist. Because it makes the system better. It's the only thing that would make the system better. It's the only thing that would work. Nothing else would work. So, what do I do with that? It's not supposed to be that easy. And this is a hermetic step that you're taking by stepping up this tall, this high, and turning around and looking. And not everybody's meant to stay up here. Those people are like, I don't like it up here. It's too high. This is insane. I'm going to go back to where thank you for your service makes sense. Because that's easy. I'm going to go back to take a vaccine because I just want to go back to work. I just want to travel. That's easy. And wow, this insert's so easy. Why? Because it says this space is intentionally left blank. There's no deception there. Right? That's white belt. That's sheep. That's how it all works. So, Hope you enjoyed the show. Sorry for the technical issues, and appreciate you being here and helping us help. Thank you for helping me hack my show and make the system better. And you guys have a good time. We'll see you next time.